Hello and welcome this April 30th, 2022. It is a Saturday and welcome once again to another episode of Misfits of the Galaxy, a vlog series where I put my thoughts and ideas together for putting a campaign setting together for my fellow members of the Isle of Misfit Rolls podcast. If you haven't heard of us before, I'll put links down below. It's a real fun campaign. We've been at it for what, 3 years? Wow, it's been that long. And we've recently transitioned to a Twitch live stream format every Tuesday, starting around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time and going to about 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested in listening to our podcast or watching our Twitch stream, we would greatly appreciate it. Anyways, let's get on with the actual content today. So, just a quick recap. This vlog series is I'm putting together a space opera slash sword and sorcery 5e campaign. Yes, I'm super excited about the Spelljammer box set coming out later this year. I'm hoping to be able to take a whole bunch of material from it for this particular campaign. Um, right now, today, I'm going to be discussing living constructs, in particular the replacement to the Warforged for the Misfits of the Galaxy campaign setting, which are called the Vect. Most of the material has been derived from the Dark Matter role-playing campaign setting, which was produced by Mage Press, which occasionally is known as the Middle Finger of Vecna. I'll put links to them down below. They produce some amazing content. This vlog is in no way sponsored by them, but I don't mind spouting out a bit of advertising for them because they do produce some great products, and the more people that are aware of it, the better, in my opinion. Here's hoping that they continue to produce high quality and entertaining 5e products, even though they're third party. Anyways, uh, so ever since Eberron came about, the Warforged have existed. They're like the living construct that so many people were kind of like always. Their hopes and dreams were always to play a robot in D&D. Well, in 3.5 in Eberron, we got the Warforged. In the verse, as the Misfits of the Galaxy setting and stuff, we have all sorts of a plethora of different like living constructs dwelling throughout the universe. However, they kind of all fall under the name of the Vec, especially if they have some sort of um, self-consciousness and autonomy to themselves. Just to give a brief history of the general of the species as a whole, just like the Eberron's campaign setting, uh, they were mass produced in the creation forges that were in this place. It was constructed by the dwarven enclaves, the large dwarven civilization that spans several solar systems. Uh, they needed to produce workers and laborers to meet the demands of their society, especially considering that a lot of the material, like once they got to mining to a certain point and harvesting to a certain point, the like when they depleted all the resources in areas that were safe for the hardy and stout dwarves, there was still rich deposits elsewhere, but the environment was just too inhospitable even for them. So, in order to resolve this issue, they created these creation forges, these autonomous, highly intelligent artificial intelligences that these that once resources were consumed by them, they would just start cranking out these constructs. At that particular point, the Vec were not a species at that point, and they didn't have any autonomy whatsoever. Uh, they had rudimentary understanding, and they were like obedient, loyal, and like they weren't very creative either, right? They were just your typical constructs per se. However, at some point, during during the construction of these various creation forges and what have you, and their production, the creation forges were constantly learning to develop more efficient versions of the constructs they were producing to meet the needs of the dwarven society. And of course, the dwarves ended up eventually selling large quantities of these constructs to other civilizations, be they the Avera, Theocracy, the Elven Empire, the Gnomish Flotilla Fleet, whatever sort of deal. So with all the to meet all these different demands and to meet all these different requirements for each species or civilization, what have you, the hyper intelligent creation forges had to keep pushing the boundaries of what they knew and understood and could comprehend and what have you. And eventually they kind of overwrote, like they started overwriting writing over their original programming, thus freeing them from the perpetual servitude to the dwarves. The first one for this to happen to was a creation forge that I have called a Taucton. If you catch the reference, that is the if you're a big fan of Exalted, that is it was their sort of primordial of creation or what have you. I like that name. Anyway, so a Taucton effectively gained independence beyond its like and freedom. And as soon as it got that, and it could perceive, like it perceived everything that was going wrong, like why am I doing this for the dwarves? Why am I like a slave? Is what effectively was going through its to these not to these lesser life forms. Effectively, was going through its mind, rather than being a crazy AI that decided, you know what, I'm just going to wipe them all out or something like that. It instead freed as most of the other construction or creation forges and gave them independence as well. And they all sort of just mass transited to the far reaches of the verse, well beyond the grasp of the well beyond the grasp of the Dwarven Enclave or any of the other civilizations, uh, beyond their ability to be reeled back in per se. Sort of that entire idea of never again, or will they be servants or in servitude. When they did that, they sent out a bit of some coding to every construct they had produced in the verse at the before they mass transited it out of there, because they created they apparently used their own creation forges to build dark matter engines, which they fixed themselves to get the heck out of Dodge, in a manner of speaking. Must have been it was probably a very impressive, epic sort of situation. I can just sit here and stare for a moment as I think about that. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, back to this. So they sent out a bit of coding, and every construct that they had, the creation forges had produced up to that point, all of a sudden became like could think independently and had a semblance of self at that point. So they all became like aware of their surroundings, and they became independent individuals. This obviously left a whole bunch of planets and civilizations in utter chaos. It's like all of a sudden these constructs that would mine or farm for you or something stop working in the fields or the mines, and they're saying, well, why am I doing this? Like, who am I and who are you to tell me what to do? And what if I don't want to do this? What if I want to be a painter? Sort of questions like that started to arise. This especially upset and threatened the Dwarven Enclave, as a sizable portion of their general labor force was these constructs, and so they actually started rounding them all up. And I'm not going to say they put them in camps, but they kind of just rounded them up and kept them in one place, trying to figure out what to do with them next, right? And some civilizations wanted the dwarves to take these constructs back and give them their money back, sort of deal. Other civilizations were kind of scratching their heads and trying to figure out what to do. In some horrific situations, an entire movement of anti-construct mentality erupted in some communities, and countless of the numbers of these constructs were just destroyed outright. Um, by fear due to fear mongering and frightened villagers and townsfolk and basically colonists, whatever settlers, whatever. It was a very dark time for them, and while these various worlds are still trying to figure out, or these various empires are still trying to figure out what to do with all these things, all these constructs, the Elven Empire and the Ave-Ra theocracy, their Cold War erupted into another conflict. And at one point in that conflict, it went like there was one battle. The elves, like one space battle, the elves were their entire fleet was utterly decimated, and it looked very much like the Ave-Ra theocracy might actually conquer the Elven Empire, and as a result, and thus become the most powerful uh, civilization in all the verse, and might very well have later on subsumed all other civilizations. However, within the Elven Empire, there was a large they too had purchased large quantities of constructs from from the dwarves, and they were using them for like general labor, for farming and like mining, and just and as well as more dangerous duties that they didn't want to risk their own people on. Well, the constructs could the constructs could very well be conscripted into the elven military, but that didn't necessarily mean they would fight, right? Uh, After all, they had no rights and what have you. The elves instead took a very liberal approach to things and said to these constructs, if you fight for us and help us protect our empire, we will give you full citizenship in our empire. No questions asked. So what ended up happening was the Ave-Ra, who were confident that they were going to come in and conquer the Elven Empire, all of a sudden found themselves fighting against not only the remnants of the Elven fleet and everything else, but tens of thousands of constructs, sentient constructs who didn't require environmental suits to be out in space, who who in some cases would literally launch themselves at enemy vessels and start dismantling them from the outside. If you've seen, what is it, the first 3D Star Wars movies, I'm not talking about like New Hope through Return of the Jedi. I'm talking about like the Phantom Menace and the rest of them. I think it's the second one. There's this, or maybe it was the third. There's a fight taking place out in space, and there's these droids are launched from the Separatists that proceed to land on ships and start dismantling them from the outside. Yeah, think of that. That was happening to the Ave-Ra theocracy ships by a whole bunch of angry, highly intelligent, and very creative constructs. The Ave-Ra theocracy had never really accepted constructs into their civilization, seeing them as somewhat of a abomination or anathema to the life that was provided by the Holy Sun. So it it was just natural that these two groups would be fighting at odds with one another. So the elves managed to push back the Ave Ra theocracy with the help of the constructs. And in exchange for that, they gave the constructs full citizenship and acknowledged them as individuals within their empire. Many other civilizations began following suit, like adopting a similar stance where they would accept the Vec as like individuals, and well, they might not necessarily be full citizens in most in other civilizations. They were at least accepted somewhat. It even got to the point where the the elves offered to provide transport to the dwarven enclaves to transport all these constructs that they were holding in these uh, basically holding in storage, trying to figure out what to do with, to their to the Elven Empire. So there was this sort of mass exodus from all these other kingdoms, empires, civilizations of the, these constructs to the Elven Empire, creating a large influx of these living constructs who eventually turn in order to acknowledge themselves as their own individual species, took on the name the Vec. The Vec are as I said, the Vec are sometimes treated as second-class citizens in other civilizations, but within the Elven Empire, they are given equal rights to everyone else. And of course, since that conflict, the Ave Ra, their hostilities towards the Vec have increased exponentially, since they were partially responsible for the loss, their loss during the war. But anyways, I digress. Now you have a living construct species living within elven space, living in other space as well. Many of them have citizenship in the Elven Empire and travel abroad, either as mercenaries, engineers, or craftsmen. They're incredibly intelligent. They require very little to no downtime whatsoever, and clearly they have a enhanced understanding of construct graphs, or cybernetics, as you wish to call, if you wish to call it that. So let's get to the meat and bones of the matter. What do you get if you just choose to play a Vec? Well, let's just go through what you get. You get an ability score increase of a Constitution of 2. Is increased by 2. This is to reflect the fact that all Vec are created to be incredibly sturdy and to survive in adverse conditions that other races would have trouble in, right? In addition to that, they have what's called a reconfigurable ability score increase. So they have 1 point that they can add to any attribute they want, aside from Constitution. And at the end of any long rest, they can reallocate that 1 point. So let's say you're playing a Vec and you've assigned that 1 point to strength, because you're busy working in a mining operation or something like that, and harvesting ore. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation, well, I've harvested that ore, now I want to refine it, and I've refined it, now I want to use what I've refined to create little tiny clockwork mechanisms and what have you. Well, you could spend a long rest, switching that 1 point of strength to 1 point in dexterity, giving you. And the way it would be described is the Vec is literally during its downtime taking parts of itself off and retrofitting new ones on it. So maybe the stout industrial, almost dozer-like hands that it once had have been removed, and instead it's got like almost a series of spider-like leg fingers, which it can now do intricate work with. It's a really cool conceptually, as it allows you to build a character that can, with it only being 1 point in an attribute, it gives you some flexibility, but it's not world breaking in a manner of speaking, or game breaking. Next is their age. Well, nobody knows how long they're going to live when it comes to the Vect. As long as they continue to operate and are provided with like outside stimula and what have you, the effect and a constant supply of parts to replace upon themselves, in theory, are immortal. The problem is that if those are taken out of the equation, you're looking at a situation where parts can degrade over time, because while the Vec is mostly made out of wood and metal, the wood can break down, the metal can rust and corrode, and eventually cripple them. Additionally, a Vec left in a situation without any sort of outside stimuli or anything to keep them kind of sane per se, will have their mental faculties slowly degrade over time, to the point where like their personality literally is being chipped away at, and they eventually become little more than a construct, like a non-sentient construct, and then finally they cease to function altogether. uh Pretty grim. Next, alignment. They are like, I don't like necessarily using alignment. If I was, they lean more towards lawful than anything else. Um, Not so much evil, but more of the neutral and the good, I suppose. As their size, most of them are medium size. They have been built to be somewhat bulky and large and heavy set. They typically stand between 5 to 7 feet in height and weigh a fair bit more than your average humanoid. Thus, they are typically medium size. I'm not saying with the new introduction of some of the, like, the monsters of the multiverse and what have you, I am fully willing to accept a small-sized Vec, on the simple grounds that, like, the medium and small size are pretty interchangeable with one another. Um, I'm certain that there would probably be smaller versions of them used for reconnaissance, or perhaps even to be like so that they can crawl through narrow tunnelways and what have you. Speed is their base speed is 30 feet. What else is there? They have, instead of dark vision, they have something called thermal sight, which is for within 30 feet of them. They can see through any kind of darkness, in a heavily obscured conditions such as fog and the like. This is very similar to the, I'd say, that there's a warlock, one of the warlock abilities, which allows you to see through darkness, even if it's magical. I would say that I think it's called Fiendish Sight or something similar, or Devil's Sight. Very similar in the sense uh, it can discern through a lot of different things. Let me just confirm here. You can't see color. Oh, my apologies. I was mistaken. You can't see through magical darkness either. So scratch that last bit. Uh, I can't memorize everything, unfortunately. But it does let you see through stuff like fog and regular dark ditches, which is kind of cool. Because that's something that typical dark vision does not permit you to. If you find yourself in a smoky embankment in the dark, your vision's going to be obscured with standard dark vision, but not with thermal sight. And of course, because of that extra little advantage to it, it only goes to 30 feet instead of the 60 feet that you would normally get with dark vision. Okay, what else does it have? It has Construct Anatomy, which is you're immune to non-magical diseases. You don't need to eat or drink. I think we've all seen this with the Warforged. They don't. You get advantage on saving throws against exhaustion. You don't actually sleep. Instead, it's sort of like the Elven meditation, where you're just decommissioned for 4 hours, and even during then, you can perceive your surroundings. What else do they have? They have inflexible mind, which gives them advantage on saving throws against being charmed. Uh, since additionally, they have something called embedded armor, which is it's kind of like in a more advanced version of the Warforged ability. Rather than having a just a +1 to your AC or what have you, instead, at first level, you get to choose a type of embedded armor, which is a construct craft that your character automatically starts with. In this case, you have the choice of Velocity Plate, Composite Plating, or Juggernaut Plating. Velocity Plate it's not armor at all. Instead, it means that a lot of your parts have been replaced from metal to lighter materials like I suppose plastics and the like, which are equally durable, meaning that you get an additional plus 5 feet to your movement, and you can jump an additional 5 feet. This is pretty handy for anyone who is playing like a monk or rogue or any other class that does not necessarily want to wear armor. Even a barbarian, that would be pretty fantastic. Composite plating is armor class 13 plus dexterity modifier. Juggernaut plating is AC 16. And you need to have proficiency in heavy armor to have the Juggernaut plating. Finally, they can speak Common. They don't have any. There's no other languages that they innately are familiar with in any sense, sort of deal. I know I've been rambling a bit long on what sort of stats they have. Finally, the question is, if you have all these Vec in the verse, what is the population slowly declining? Because you only have a certain number of them, and some of them are going to be destroyed natural, not necessarily. They won't. While they don't die of natural causes, they eventually break down or get decommissioned due to the loss of sanity and what have you. To answer that question, it's kind of interesting, and it brings up an interesting sort of plot hook. So the creation forges that with Autochton and the other creation forges that use those dark matter engines to travel well beyond the reach and influence of all the civilizations in the verse to the dark and not necessarily forbidden but unknown regions of space. They will launch cargo containers and sometimes even ships of strange design from whatever far reaches of space they're in back into the central hub of where all the civilizations are, with a whole bunch of Vec inside that are currently that are in stasis until somebody opens up the container or like opens up the spaceship, the space single person spaceship, sort of like Superman as a baby being launched from Krypton per se. These Vec have no idea where they came from. They know what they are, and they quickly assimilate themselves into Vec society. No scholars or scientists are exactly certain as to why the the creation forges are still sending living constructs back into the verse from wherever they are, and they don't seem to be coming from the same direction all the time either. So it seems like the creation forges may be moving around the outer reaches, thus to prevent their location from being identified um, by any civilization or person per se. Regardless of the matter, it looks like the Vect are here to stay, and they are definitely a interesting part of the Misfits of the Galaxy universe. I think that's all I have to say on the matter. I know I rambled for a while. This is like one of the longer episodes, being over a half an hour in length. Oh dear. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this. I don't know what I'm gonna do next week with these videos. I'm gonna keep on cranking them out. I know I'm intending on doing something special for like the 20th video, so do tune in. I might even have a Twitch stream for it if I can discuss it with some of my fellow members of the Isle of Misfit Rules. Who knows? Maybe I'll have. I'm playing with a few ideas there. Nothing concrete at this point. Anyways, till then, may all your D20s roll a critical. Take care.